We don't need the politicians that we have running around creating havoc, telling us about these shortages when there's no shortage at all. I've done the experimentation, and I'm telling Radio Land out there tonight, stop being so hypocritical about this and write your senators and congressmen, get Joe Newman his patent, and you'll see the door open up for your freedom.
We seriously need a breakthrough in this area. We need to break through this barrier, and the only way that can come is from the people. We have to, for example, get across to the average citizen that scientists, for example, are not magicians. They are human beings just like any other group, and they're a distribution of persons. There's some good ones and some bad ones, and there's a lot of pompous ones and all kinds of things, just like any other group you would pick out. Okay, you don't, just because something is said by a scientist doesn't necessarily make it true. So we must not raise science, for example, to the blind worship or the dogma. In other words, feel free to question a scientist. If you look at the things that scientists have pronounced, you'll find that they often change every few years. And so don't take science as being absolutely, positively having ultimate truth. Science does not produce ultimate truth. It produces a good kind of truth, but it's not ultimate. So don't deify them. They are human beings, and their knowledge is imperfect.
You know, also, Marie, you might put pressure with your letters and telephone calls to places like Caltech and UCLA, USC, and the aerospace industries around here and say, why don't you investigate this? Now, they'll probably send you a letter back if they do and say it's impossible.
What you do is you ask them a specific question. Ask them how many experiments they've done in this area and to please report to you the results of those experiments.
And, of course, they have done none, but they will tell you that it's impossible based upon that great data and research that they have done, which is zip.
One more point, Bill, here, that if you get the Joe Newman book on his free energy machine, you will find hundreds of letters at the back of that book where Joe Newman actually wrote the president, 4 presidents to be exact. They never viewed the tape. They never viewed the information. They just sent him one big excuse after another, backwards and forwards.
Well, that's disgraceful.
Well,
I could see that with this kind of device, we Americans can gain our self-respect.
That's correct.
Right. That's exactly what you want.
And you can gain a great big portion of something you're losing every day, and that's your individual freedom.
True. Well, I thank you very much for all this information. It's been most interesting.
Good questions, Marie, and I appreciate you getting in here with us.
We're going to go right to work on it.
All right. Thank you, hon.
Thank you.
All right. David, you're on.
Yes, sir. Well, your show's been so interesting tonight. I don't know where to begin. I'm a first-time caller, and I hope I don't get stage fright.
Well, don't get stage fright. We're all just country boys here.
But anyway, I'm an electrician, and I dabble in real estate, and I'm kind of a amateur person in regards to science. I went to UCLA. I got a life science degree, and I agree that it's hard to get original thoughts through in the university system. For instance, I went to the physics department because I had some notions regarding gravity, and I tried to discuss it, and I was told, well, there's not been anything seriously new come up in physics in 1926, and they didn't want to listen to me. But anyway, I do have some ideas regarding gravity and light, and I just wondered if you wanted to hear about them.
Sure.
Go right ahead, but kind of make it quick. We've spent a lot of time with some of the callers here, and I want to get to as many as I can. All right?
Okay. Anyway, I've been thinking about gravity for several years now, and I wonder, I may be a little slow, but is the theory that bodies have gravitational attraction still valid?
Not in that exact sense. What you really have as gravitational field is a warpage or a curvature of the space-time itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the position or motion of the bodies is due to, which, for example, the traction mass is due to that curvature.
So, in other words, gravity is a phenomenon of space and not necessarily intrinsic to the body.
It's a phenomenon of the curvature of space-time.
Mm-hmm. And then I had one other question regarding the speed of light that I've been thinking about for some time. Is there any thinking as to what it is that affects the speed of light? Why is it so universal in electromagnetic transmission?
Well, it varies, you know.
It does vary?
It does vary. For example, on the surface of the Earth, the Russians are quite aware and have published in the literature that the speed of light in a hard vacuum on the surface of the Earth is a little faster than the speed of light in a hard vacuum away from the Earth. And that's due to the fact that all the charged particles in the Earth, the charge increases the potential, or it curves space-time a little bit. And you can look at vacuum as nothing but a massless charge, and it says that you got a little denser vacuum, if I can corrupt the term here. And just like sound moving faster in a denser medium, the light waves move a little bit faster. In the fourth decimal, they move that much faster on the near the surface of the Earth, and that is established experimentally.
And is gravity in some way related to the speed of light?
Well, it's certainly related to the change in the speed of light. If you curve space-time, the speed c is not necessarily the same speed it was before. Also, the real thing that c represents, it's a limitation on the movement of mass. Mass can approach a certain value. You know, it can approach theoretically as close as you want to get to it, but can't exceed it. That's really what it says. There are certain things that already move faster than the speed of light. For example, de Broglie waves, which do produce real physical effects, and the man was given the Nobel Prize for discovering that, Louis de Broglie. De Broglie waves themselves always move faster than the speed of light, or the slowest they can ever go is at the speed of light, but they're always faster than the speed of light. And since they produce real effects, they can't be ignored. So there are things that move faster than the speed of light already in physics.
Yes.
So when anyone comes in and naively says you cannot exceed the speed of light, that's foolishness.
And what are your thinkings on inertia? Is it...
As far as I'm concerned, inertia is an aspect of mass, and mass is nothing but a trapped scalar resonance, trapped by the spin of the particle or whatever that makes up the mass. And so you can increase the mass of an object if you increase the amplitude of that scalar resonance, and you can decrease the mass and inertia of the same object if you decrease it.
And have you ever heard the notion of gravitational shadow?
Yes, I have. That goes all the way back to Lesage. I forget the century, but it's several centuries old. It was refuted based on a physical model that if you had a planet moving through raindrops and they struck the front of the planet more often than the rear, the planet would decay in orbit, in other words, and so that couldn't be it. But as a matter of fact, if you get into it in terms of quantum mechanics and you're not dealing with particles that hit and bounce off and produce momentum, a version of the Lesage model can be made to work.
And then I think perhaps one other question, there's the notion of the death spin of the...
You know what? I just noticed that our clock has stopped here in the studio. I'm thinking it's 11:25, and we're midnight. And I've got to run, and I've got to say good night to all of you, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right. Good night to you all. Tom, we'll check with you later.
Okay, good night.
Bye-bye.
Hello there, this is